You're about to watch me read Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Stormlight Archive series. If you haven't read or haven't watched my video on the Way of Kins, you may want to do that before, because there are going to be spoilers because of what happened in the first book is going to be relevant for the second book, but I won't be spoiling the second book in this video. Like, you know, it's like when you get to the third book, you can kind of talk about stuff that happens in the second book and the first book and etc, etc. So yeah, stuff that happened in the first book will be mentioned in this video, but I will not spoil anything from this book. My expectations for this book are really high. Like, I'm expecting it to be better than the first book, because the first book, in my opinion, like, was more like the prologue for the entire series. Like, it's setting everything up, like introducing the characters, kind of get everything started. And I think that this one is going to focus way more on like the discovery of the powers that maybe some of the characters have, and more about the spren and like how that relates to the Radiant Knights. And so I'm excited to see like where this goes. I know the series is planned to be like 10 books or so, and so there's only a few of them out right now, so maybe this one won't be like how I think it's gonna be, but I think it's gonna be good either way, if that makes sense. So without further ado, let's crack this big hunk-a-lunk open. So I just finished the first part and the first interlude of Words of Radiance, so here are my thoughts so far. The prologue was so good. At first, like, I thought that when they mentioned assassins, I was like, wait, what? That character would never do that. And I'm like losing my mind. And then I realized like where it was going, and I was like, that was so good. Like, just everything about that. And I was like, what is going on? And then I continued to read. And so part one focuses on 3 characters: Shallan, Kaladin, and Dalinar. So I recently learned that each of the books kind of focus on one character more than the others. So the first one, The Way of Kins that I read, focused more on Kaladin's character, while all the other characters, of course, played a very pivotal role. In this one, it focuses more on Shallan and like kind of her story, but still, of course, keeping the other stories of all the characters in the book as well. And her story, oh my goodness, that was like a jaw-dropping moment. What happened on the ship, and with pattern and like all of this stuff, and I'm like, no way. Like, I actually was like, oh, like I did one of those like actual gasps when that happened, and I was like, no, like I still don't know if what happened actually happened or not, but I think it did. And so I'm like, what? How? Why? My heart, that's so sad. Like, just so many feelings. And like just her like kind of discovering more about like the powers, and this one really focuses on like spren and like different types and like how to categorize it, and it's just like, it's so cool. I really love, like, there's no characters that I don't like, so it's really great. It's like, oh, this thing is happening, oh awesome, okay, here's the next character, yes, also awesome. Like, I'm having a great time with this. And Kaladin's story is fun as well, because he's like kind of learning about his powers and how he can like stick to walls kind of like Spider-Man, and just like the interaction he has with like former Bridge 4, I think is so great. And any scene that Rock is in just makes me laugh so hard. I love that man with all my heart. It's also really interesting the way that he sees Dalinar's son, like Adolin. Someone please correct me in the comments. How do I say this name? I'm not sure. Anyways, so it's interesting that he sees him as kind of like the snooty, kind of stuck up, selfish kind of guy. But then like when we get Adolin's like actual perspective, it's like, no, he's not really like that. Like, yeah, he's a little spoiled, but like he's really heroic and he cares about people and like all this stuff. Like, I don't know, like it's really cool to be able to like see the differences. There was also like a quick scene with like Sadie's like point of view, and I thought that was really cool as well. That was interesting to have. And then like the cliffhanger of where Kaladin's story ended, that was another moment where I almost screamed. Like, it was like, oh no, but also like, oh, will he be able to do the thing? will he be able to punch the guy in the face? Like, who knows? Like, I'm excited. And then Dalinar's story, yes, I love Dalinar. I love his visions. The visions are so like rich and unique to me. I never know what to expect. And so like kind of following along and like, so when he's in the visions, now he's kind of like saying what he's seeing very, very quietly. That way Navani, who's like sitting in front of him while he's kind of like passed out during like the storm, she's able to write down everything that he's saying to really get an accurate kind of representation and understanding of like what he's seeing. That way when he comes out, they can kind of like fact check it together and everything as well. So that's really cool because it's like I don't understand it yet either. And like, it's like, I feel like I'm experiencing it with Dalinar and it's like, what does it mean? And I'm still so concerned because we know in the previous book that Szeth, that's another name I learned how to pronounce recently. Thank you so much. We learned that Szeth has been ordered to kill Dalinar. And so like, we know that Kaladin is kind of like the bodyguard for him. And so it's like, that's gonna be a good fight scene, but don't kill my precious Kaladin. I love that boy. And I just have to say it again, the spren. Oh my goodness, like everything about the spren just, I feel like I don't even have words to explain it, but I love what's happening with the spren. Especially Pattern. I think Pattern is so cute. Oh my goodness. Like, I don't know why I think Pattern's so cute, but I'm just like, aw, precious. And of course we have the interludes as well, which the interludes, I never really understood them at first. I was like, oh, it's kind of like, you know, just a little break from the main story. What I really like about the interludes is that you really get to understand more of the world and see it from other characters' eyes who aren't like the main character. So it's like, oh, over here, like the one that kind of reminded me of Avatar: The Last Airbender with Turtle Island. There's like an island and it's like a big creature and people just live on top of it. And I'm like, I love that. Like I love anything like that. And so it's just like being able to kind of see how other parts of the world behave. Like they all have different cultures. They have different kind of like religions as well and different communication methods. And it's just really cool. Like the interludes really give that extra depth and complexity to an already complex world, but it's bite-sized and it's easy to understand. And I can't talk about the interlude, the first interlude of Words of Radiance without talking about Ashani. That was a POV that I didn't know I needed, but I'm so happy I got. Like that was so cool and it really just, again, it provided more information, more context, and just even more to the world. Like when people were telling me that the second book is better than the first, like I was like, how? Like the first book was so good. Like I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but this one, like, I think because like I'm already immersed in the world, I'm just like, like I just want to like, you know, okay. So now that I got all of that out, I'm going to continue to read and I'm going to update you at the next part. So I'll see you then. I just finished part 2 and the interlude, and oh my goodness, there's just like so much happening, and it's like, here's like a dun 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 kind of reveal, and then like something that happens, and it's like, whew, I'm like on the edge of my seat, because like there's just like one after the other. It's like a great awesome reveal, or like something really scary happens to like these characters. I'm like, all of the insights that we're now getting about Shallan's character is like, it's so exciting. Like we're able to see part of her backstory as well. Like in the first book, we got like Kaladin's backstory. We're learning about Shallan's backstory now as well. And then just like the way that her kind of part of this part 2 ended on such a cliffhanger and such like a dramatic reveal. I was like, oh my goodness, like that's incredible. There's like so much mystery still surrounding like her backstory that's being hinted at, and like the pieces are coming together, and I'm just like, I'm having such a good time with it. And just like watching her develop as a character. Like when we met her, she was very like timid and very anxious, and she never really went out. Like she was always just in her estate the whole time, and now she's out in the world and just like watching her become more confident and mature and adapt to the situations is so great. And it's like gradual and it makes sense and it's like, ugh, so good. I'm honestly really loving the rivalry between Kaladin and Adolin. Like, it's just like so fun. Like, they see each other and they're like, oh, like this guy's so arrogant and full of himself, and it's like, oh, he's so arrogant and full of himself. But like, they also help each other out, and like the scene with the horses was so funny to me. I absolutely love that, and it made me so happy that Kaladin laughed for like the first time ever. Like, he genuinely laughed, even though it was very short-lived. But I'm like, keep on doing that, keep on doing that. And then like Kaladin's dream, we remember in the first book, like he had that dream and he kind of saw Szeth. Something very interesting happened with that dream, and I really hope that what was mentioned in that dream isn't the reality, and he's able to kind of change that kind of reality, if that makes sense, without spoiling anything. And it's really good. And then when we got to see Szeth again, that was such an incredible fight scene. I also screamed at like all the things that were happening at that time, and I'm like the kind of like focus like I'm reading, and I'm like like I had to like curl and like be in like a fetal position while I'm reading, because I'm just like so into it, but also like so worried for these characters. So it was a very good time. And then in the interlude, we got some more info about Ishani and kind of the next progression in her and her sister's kind of like studies and like what she was embarking to do. And it's like, what is that? Like, why did those events happen? Why did that conversation happen like during the storm? Like, what does it mean? What's gonna happen? I don't know what's gonna happen, but yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening, as well as just like that quick little scene about like the instructor guy, and he's pretty funny. I'm really liking, like, the book is like, it's serious, but it has like humor in just the right spots. The only thing that I want a little bit more of would be the romance. Like, we do have Dalinar and Navani's like kind of romance, but I want more romance, and that's just like the romance heart part of me. That's the only thing I feel is missing in these books. But everything else, like this book, I'm having so much fun with this. So of course I'm going to continue to read. Fun fact, I actually took 2 days off work so I can continue to read. This is the weekend for where I am at right now, but I have 2 more days after this where I can just read, because I'm taking time off because I really just want to read, which is, it's a great time. Anyways, yes, so I'm going to continue to read, and I'm going to update you when I get to the 3rd part of this book, so I will see you then. So I just finished part 3 and the interludes of Words of Radiance, and I don't understand how there's still like so much happening, like so many like plot twists and little like what moments, but there still is, and it's like, wow. I'm like shocked that there is no filler at all in this book. It's really just like, it just makes sense. Like, everything makes sense. Like, book is massive. You would think like, oh yeah, there'd be some filler maybe like here and there, but no, every single page has a purpose. Every single character has a purpose. Everybody you see and meet, there's a purpose to it. And there's some really good fight scenes and some really good insights into all of the characters, and I'm like stressed out, but in like a good way, like the way that a good book stresses you out. I am very eager to see like what's gonna happen with Ishani's story, especially like what we kind of observed in the interlude. I don't know where that's gonna go. It stresses me out, especially with like the countdown, like that countdown during the high storms, and it's like, is that related to what's happening? Perhaps, perhaps not. Like, I don't know, but something's about to happen. Something big is about to happen. I'm also really loving Shalyn in this story. Like, I liked her in the previous one as well, but now that we get to see her more, she's so funny. Like, I love her. She's very like She's very witty. Speaking of witty, I love that we saw Wit again. Like, I'm pretty sure that we saw him in the previous interlude, like, strung up on a tree upside down. Like, I'm pretty sure that was him, but I just love Wit. He's, like, one, he's really funny. Two, he's also, like, super mysterious. Like, he's definitely some kind of puppeteer, is what I'm thinking, especially because of, like, what happened in the last book, The Way of Kins, and then kind of, like, what's happening in Words of Radiance. Like, he's up to something. Is he up to something good or something bad? I don't know. I want to say something good because I really like him and I think he's really funny. But yeah, there's a lot of really interesting like things that are happening, especially again, like what we learned about Shalyn and her family, and also just like the relationship she has with her brothers. Like, I really liked that, especially because like when we first start introduced to her brothers in Way of Kins, it's like, ooh, they're kind of like, especially the one guy who likes to rip like legs off, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, who are these guys? But now like I'm invested, like I understand them, like I know each of their personalities and like the kind of life they had growing up, and it's like every single character is so good. Like they're like, even if they're not like a good person, they're a good character, and they're all good, well-developed, unique characters, and it's like, yes. I'm also very upset about what happened with Kaladin after that little battle that happened. I'm not, like, I think I'm disappointed in Kaladin, but I'm also disappointed in the kin himself. And like, I understand both sides, but I think it's just like, it wasn't the right place and the right time for Kaladin to do that. But also, the kin annoys me. He really does annoy me. Like, he's just, you know? But like Dalinar, we like Dalinar. And I also wonder, like, when I look back, like once I read all the books, I'm like, I wonder if these characters who I love right now, what if I hate them eventually? What if like Kaladin has like a villain arc or something? Like, I don't know, but we'll find out, I guess. So I'm gonna continue to read, and I'm gonna update you once I finish the 4th part. I think there's probably gonna be 5 or 6. Like, you can see like where my bookmark is versus the pages left. So I think there might be room for 6. Last time there was 5, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna continue to read, and I'll see you in my next update. I just finished part 4 and the interlude of Words of Radiance. That's my reaction. How can I already be at page 900? But also, how can I be on page 900 and whatever, and it's still like so good, and every single page is like better than the last, and there's like all these plot twists coming out, like terrifying, tragic moments, like, like, whew, this is an emotional ride. Now, I can't predict the future, unfortunately, but when I said I was looking for a little bit more romance in this book, I sort of got my wish in like a roundabout way, but not the way that I'm looking for. There is some romance brewing, but in my heart of hearts, I want it to be with Shalyn and Kaladin. I want it to be them. I want it to be them. They had such a great scene together, okay? Here's why. When they first meet, they have a really big witty moment, like wits after wits after wits, and it's like, yes, this is chemistry. And they kind of like avoid each other and all that. But then, when they're trapped in the chasm together, they actually get to know each other, they have a conversation, they talk about like their dark pasts together, and like, I just want it to be. I just want it to be. So it's not really a spoiler because nothing's actually happened, but it's just like me wanting it, you know? Like, I want that. Also, I screamed at the page with the storm and the chasms and Syl. I don't think I'm gonna recover. I'm not gonna recover. This book is like whacking me across the face with all of the plot twist and like tragedy. Like, I just need a moment, you know? I need a moment. I also need a moment because of the scene with the storm and Kaladin and Shallan in the little hole that they dug and the conversation that Kaladin had. I need a moment for that as well. I just need so many moments because every single page is just like so good and painful. It was also really cool to be able to finally see kind of it's not exactly the conclusion of Shallan's like backstory, because there is still kind of that unknown part about like the soul, I guess we'll put it like that. But everything else, like, it was really cool to like follow along the years of her growing up and like seeing like what actually happened. It's so good. So I'm going to continue to read. I imagine this part 5, is probably the last part for this book, just based on like where I am at in the book. So if there's a part 6, like I'll update you at part 6, but I imagine it's the final part. So I will see you in what I imagine is the final part. I just finished Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, and this book, I know I've said this already 100 times, but this book, every single page, there was like something new and like plot twisty and like developy, and this, honestly, masterpiece of a book. It's so hard to talk about it, right? Like because I don't want to spoil things for you, but it's just like, it's so good. Like, that fight scene towards the end in the Shattered Plains was so well done, and like I'm like like the whole time. And then I was also pretty surprised, honestly, with like what Adolin, please correct me, I still don't know that man's name, what he did kind of towards the end. I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder what's gonna happen about that. And then also just like what happens with all the characters, and like what happened with the storms and like the Everstorm and like all of this, and it's like, and then, oh yes, the discovery about like the shard blades. If you know, you know. I was like, oh, what? That makes so much sense, but also like that's so tragic, and also like, I had such a fun time reading this book. As you can guess, Words of Radiance is definitely getting 5 stars. This book was just so well done, so well written, like so many like surprises. Like, I like to think that I'm not somebody who gets surprised super easily, and there were stuff like even towards the end that I kind of like knew was gonna happen, but for the most part, I would say like 90% of the surprises, like, they got me every time, and I was like, whoa, like this is incredible. Like, how does he do it? Like this, I think this is the best Brandon Sanderson book I've ever read. So it took me about 4 days of reading for this hunkalunk, and I know there's a novella. So there's a novella that I'm supposed to read before I read the 3rd book. However, I don't own it at the moment, so I have to go get that. It's called Edge Dancer, and it's about, I think it's about Lift, who's somebody we kind of meet in one of the like interludes, and she's kind of interesting. I don't know if I would enjoy a whole book about her, so I guess we'll find out. It's not like a big one either, so I'm gonna still get it just to find out. So in the meantime, I have been neglecting my book club's book of the month. So now that I finished Words of Radiance and March is almost over, I'm gonna be reading Yellowface by R.F. Kwan. And so this is for the book club that I'm a part of, just like a local book club in the area. And so this is our March book, and I have not read it yet because I have been reading other books. So this is what I'm gonna be reading next, and then I will have to pick up Edge Dancer. So if you're interested in watching me read more Brandon Sanderson books, or even like Yellowface or any other books that are kind of on my TBR, definitely hit subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. If you enjoyed this video, and if you loved Words of Radiance like I did, don't forget to hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!